Ireland, a country of haunting tales and rich folklore. In this episode, I will tell some terrifying stories from the country's most haunted places. So why not start off with the most haunted castle in the world, Leap Castle in County Offaly. The building has a horrific history, full of ferocious acts of violence and murder. It's no wonder that this castle is full of spirits, both good and bad. Originally, the fortress was built here in 1250 by the O'Bannon clan. They were an ancient Irish clan that were known to be fierce warriors. Their allies were the O'Carroll family, another powerful clan whose influence grew over the years. Inevitably, the O'Carrolls seized control of this castle and made it their principal seat. The O'Carrolls were a violent bunch, and the castle saw many turbulent years of feuding and bloodshed. The most infamous murder to happen here took place in a room known as the Bloody Chapel. The year was 1532. The chieftain Mulrooney O'Carroll had just passed away, and there was a bitter dispute about who the next leader of the clan would be. Thaddeus O'Carroll was a priest, and he was saying mass in the chapel when his brother, Tig O'Carroll, stormed into the room and drove his sword right through Thaddeus. Fatally wounded, he collapsed onto the altar and died right there. From then on, the priest's spirit has haunted the Bloody Chapel, and people passing the castle at night have seen a light suddenly come on in this room. Another story from Leap Castle outlines the mass murder of members of the MacMahon clan, who were hired by the O'Carrolls to show them new techniques of warfare. The MacMahons came and trained the O'Carrolls, and after a great feast, they suddenly became very ill and all died. Of course, their food had been poisoned by the O'Carrolls, who thought it wiser to kill them. Of course, the ghosts of the MacMahons haunt the castle to this day. In the 1600s, the daughter of an O'Carroll chieftain married the English Captain Darby. Their son, Jonathan Darby, hid a lot of treasure from the Civil War around the castle. He got 2 servants to help him with this, who he murdered afterwards. Of course, this was to guarantee their silence. The most fearsome entity to haunt Leap Castle is known as the Elemental. In the early 19th century, Mildred Darby, who lived at the castle, dabbed in the black arts and released the Elemental. The Elemental is a primitive type of ghost that is known to be unpredictable, and it attaches itself to a particular place. Well, it attached itself to Leap Castle. It is said to be a thin, gaunt, shadowy figure with an inhumane, decomposing face, accompanied by the smell of a rotting corpse. This is a description by Mildred herself in 1909 when she recounted her meeting with the Elemental. In 1922, workmen renovating Leap Castle made a horrifying discovery. Behind a wall in the Bloody Chapel, they uncovered a secret dungeon. Within this room, they found numerous skeletons piled upon a wooden spike. It took 3 cartloads to remove these remains. These poor souls were probably prisoners or unsuspected guests of the O'Carrolls. They would have been dropped through a hidden trap door above the oubliette to die a horrific death on the spike below. In 1922, the castle was burnt by the IRA and remained a ruin for about 70 years, until the Ryan family purchased it in the early 90s. Since then, they have greatly restored the building and have made it a home. It's open to visit on request, and many people have had paranormal experiences here. Let's go down to Wexford now for a haunting tale. Dramatically perched on Wexford's Hookhead Peninsula, Loftus Hall is known by many as Ireland's most haunted house. The history of this site goes back hundreds of years. In the 12th century, a castle was built here by the Norman Raymond Fitzgerald. Raymond's descendants adapted their name to Redmond, and in the year 1350 they replaced the original castle with a new one called Redmond Hall. About 300 years later, the family were unseated by Oliver Cromwell, and eventually the house was granted to the Loftus family, who made it their principal residence in the year 1666. The building we see today was renovated between the years 1872 and 1879 by the fourth Marquess of Ely, John Wellington Graham Loftus. This was under the guidance of his mother, Lady Jane Loftus, who was the lady-in-waiting to Queen Victoria. No expense was spared, as the family were expecting a visit from the Queen herself. However, after being told what happened in the house between the years 1765 and 1775, she decided not to visit. Of course, the story she was told was the legend of Loftus Hall. On one particular stormy night, a ship ran aground off Hook Head. One man got off the boat near Slade Harbour, and after seeing the dimly lit Loftus Hall in the distance, he acquired a horse and made his way towards the grand mansion. Charles Tottenham, who was living in the house with his daughter Anne and his second wife Jane, answered the door and invited the tall, handsome man in. The family began playing a game of cards with the stranger, and it was all going well until Anne dropped one of her cards on the floor, and on retrieving this card, she noticed that the stranger had cloven hooves as feet. On realising what she had seen, the stranger suddenly burst into flames and shot out through the roof, shrieking and yelling as he went. Ever since this incident, Anne never recovered, and she descended into madness. She was locked away in a room by her family, who were embarrassed by her, and for 10 years she suffered. At the time, the incident with the stranger was actually recorded in the Cork Examiner and in church records. It is recorded that a Father Broaders came to the house to perform an exorcism. He states that he was successful in cleansing the house of the devil, except for one room, the room that Anne Tottenham was locked in. When Anne passed away, she was found in the fetal position, and a special coffin had to be built around her. We know this because, unfortunately, people broke into her tomb and took pictures of the unusually shaped coffin. To add to her story, sadly, in the late 1800s, the skeletal remains of a baby were found behind the fireplace in her room. There are many other stories about Loftus Hall. For example, in the early 1900s, it became a convent, and 2 nuns died mysteriously on the back stairway in separate incidents. In the 1980s, it was run as a hotel for a very short period, until the owner died in the house. Shortly after his death, his wife left the house one day, leaving all her belongings behind. It is said that a table remained fully set there until the late 90s, when the new owner bought it. Many people have had paranormal experiences in this house, and whether you believe it or not, it is a very sad place. The hole in the roof that the devil supposedly shot up through remains, and numerous attempts to fix it have failed. So the question is, would you stay a night in Loftus Hall? Moving now to County Cork and the place called Charlesfort in Kinsale. And this place is known for its famous ghost, the White Lady. Charlesfort was built in 1682 on the site of an earlier castle. It was designed by Sir William Robinson, and it's named after King Charles II. It's a magnificent star-shaped fort, with some of its outer defences being 16 metres high. Its star-shaped design helped it resist cannon fire, and it's withstood many wars. It was a British barracks until the 1920s, when anti-treaty IRA forces burnt it out. Today, it's open to visit and run by the OPW. But what about its ghost? Well, her name is Wilful Warrender. She was the daughter of the governor of Charlesfort, Governor Warrender. She fell madly in love with one of the officers stationed here, Sir Trevor Ashurst, and very soon they married. But on the night of their wedding, Wilful and Sir Trevor were walking the grounds of the fort. Wilful saw pretty flowers at the base of one of the battlements, and Sir Trevor said he would climb down to get them. But instead, an on-duty sentry said that he would go down. So Sir Trevor took the man's place as guard, and he waited. However, the sentry did not return, and Sir Trevor fell asleep. Wilful's father, the governor, would inspect the fort every night, and on this night he saw a sentry leaning against the wall asleep when he was meant to be on guard. He shouted at the man, but there was no reply. So Warrender shot him through the heart, and as he approached the body, he realised that he had just shot his son-in-law. Devastated, Wilful took her own life by running off one of the ramparts into the cold waters below. And ever since, she haunts Charlesfort in her wedding dress. And it's said that she's looking for sentries who have fallen asleep so she can wake them up. Many locals have seen the White Lady, and she is described as a gentle spirit, sad but kind. So if you're ever in Kinsale, have a look out for the White Lady. Next, let's go to County Carlow, and to a place known as Duckett's Grove, a spectacular Gothic fantasy in the County Carlow countryside. This is Duckett's Grove. You might have heard of Duckett's Grove as it's famously haunted by a banshee. The banshee is an important figure in Irish folklore. It's the spirit of a woman that is often heard wailing or crying in the middle of the night. And if you hear her, it is certain that one of your family members or you yourself will die soon. Duckett's Grove started out as a regular Georgian house in the 18th century. It was the centre point of a 12,000 acre domain. The Ducketts owned this land from the year 1695, and the house itself underwent two major transformations in its lifetime. The most extravagant of these came in the 1820s, when John Dawson Duckett employed the architect Thomas Cobden to turn his house into a Gothic revival masterpiece. After John Dawson Duckett, it was his son William who inherited the estate. Now, he was married twice but had no children, and when he died in 1908, Duckett's Grove was left to his wife, Marie. Marie didn't stay at Duckett's Grove for very long. A few years after her husband's death, she moved full-time to Dublin, and in 1923, the entire contents of the house were sold at auction. The house itself was sold in 1931, and the end of Duckett's Grove came in 1933, when it was mysteriously gutted by a fire. But now, let's talk about the legend of the banshee. It starts with William Duckett having an affair with a young local woman. Tragically, the young woman was killed in a horse-riding accident on the grounds of Duckett's Grove. And after this, her grieving mother decided to place a curse on William. This curse brought financial ruin to the Ducketts, and as we can see, it worked. But this wasn't the only thing it brought to Duckett's Grove. For this curse, or pisheog, as it's known in Irish, brought a banshee. Over the years, many employees have heard the cry of the banshee, and not long after, one of their family members would pass away. Whether you're a believer or skeptic, there have been reports of hearing the banshee in recent years, sadly foretelling the deaths of loved ones. Now let's venture back to County Offaly to hear the stories of the haunted Charleville Castle. Charleville Castle is located in Tullamore, and it was built between 1798 and 1812 for the first Earl of Charleville. Over the years, it has gained a reputation for being one of the most haunted sites in Ireland. Its most famous ghost is Harriet, and Harriet was the 8-year-old daughter of the 3rd Earl of Charleville. She tragically fell over the handrail of the staircase while sliding down it in April of 1861. She broke her neck and was killed instantly. Ever since her death, she has haunted Charleville Castle. Many people have felt a cold spot around the stairs, and she has appeared to some. Apparently, she enjoys playing hide and seek with visitors, and is sometimes seen walking alongside a young boy. No one knows who the boy is. The two ghosts enjoy playing pranks, and on one occasion they locked one of the owner's daughters in her playroom. A more recent owner of the castle, a Bridget Vance, once lost her 3-year-old son in the upper halls of Leap Castle. She heard a horrible tumbling sound, and she thought he had fallen down the stairs. She ran towards the source of the sound, and thankfully found her boy sitting on the bottom step unharmed. But the creepy part of this story is that he told his mother that a boy and a girl helped him down the stairs safely, even though there was no one else there. Moving to Ireland's capital, Dublin, and there's the notorious Hellfire Club overlooking the city. So let's have a listen to its story. Perched on the top of Mount Pellier Hill, overlooking the city of Dublin, is the Hellfire Club. For centuries, this ominous building has been the site of haunting tales and supernatural mysteries. This hunting lodge was built in 1725 by a William Connolly. Connolly was a lawyer and also a member of the Irish Parliament. Before he built this hunting lodge, there was a prehistoric monument on the site. There were passage tombs from the Neolithic period, which were surrounded by a large circle of boulders known as a cairn. Connolly used these boulders for the construction of the Hellfire Club, and from day one, the building was cursed. Shortly after it was built, the roof was blown off in a great storm, and the locals said that this was the devil's work, and that he was taking revenge for the destruction of his cairn. Ever since this incident, the building has been associated with pure evil. Connolly replaced the slate roof with a stone one, and this is the roof we see today. The Hellfire Club became associated with this building after Connolly passed away in 1729. This club consisted of Ireland's elite in society. Members were wealthy gentlemen, high-ranking officers, artists, writers, and members of the realm. It was described as a devil-worshipping group that took part in orgies, human sacrifice, and other dark rituals. Many of the ghost stories associated with this building originate from this period. There is one story that's more famous than the rest, and it's a similar story to the haunting of Loftus Hall and Castletown House. On one stormy night, members of the Hellfire Club were playing a game of cards when there was a knock on the front door. One of the men went to answer the door, and he found a dark hooded figure standing there. Without hesitation, the man was invited in and given a seat at the card table. The men resumed their game of cards, and it was all going well until one member of the Hellfire Club dropped one of his cards on the floor. And on retrieving this, he noticed that the stranger had cloven hooves for feet. At this moment, the stranger shot back from the table and announced himself as the devil. He then set fire to the building, and ever since, it has been a ruin. Now let's move to the west of Ireland and a place called Woodlawn House in County Galway. It's an ominous building amongst the tranquil wooded landscape, and with an area of 30,000 feet, it's enormous. Driving on one of the small roads around this estate, the mansion appears out of nowhere, and you're immediately struck by its intimidating nature. It's quite a dark and gloomy place, and of course the classic Irish weather doesn't help things either. The building was originally constructed in the late 18th century by the first Baron Ashdown, a Frederick Trench. In the 1860s, it underwent extensive remodelling by Frederick's son, the second Baron Ashdown. And the result of this work is the Palladian mansion we see today. This massive estate even had its own railway station, and fresh food was brought to the house via rail every week. The Trenches were a very prominent family in County Galway, and they originally arrived in Ireland in the 1600s. Historically, the land that the estate was built on goes back to pre-medieval times. In fact, there is an ancient Diarmid and Grania mound on the estate, and this townland was originally known as Mota Grania Oiga. Over the years, the townland became known as Mota, until the Trench family arrived and changed it to Woodlawn, and this was because their post was constantly being sent to a place called Moat instead. Onto the haunting of Woodlawn House. It is said that the Trench family treated their staff very badly. Their living conditions were poor and very cramped. They were subjected to a lot of abuse, and many of the women servants ended up pregnant, and they were locked away to have their baby. After giving birth, the baby was taken off them and sent away. And of course, the psychological damage caused by this was catastrophic. Because of this, Woodlawn House is a very sad place, and it's no wonder that many say it's haunted. The sound of crying is often heard from the building, as is footsteps and the sound of doors slamming. To add to this great sadness, it is said that the last Trench to live at Woodlawn sadly took his own life. Over the last decades, the house has changed ownership a number of times. It's currently not open to the public, but hopefully in the future it will be restored. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please do subscribe to my channel for more.